Hey everyone, welcome to the Party Chat People's Podcast. As I read that and I can't because I fuck it up. As always, I'm Steve and I'm joined by the Party Chat People's crew, and we're going to talk about something special today.
What are we going to talk about?
What are we going to talk about?
Well, today we're talking about the Video Game Awards. And yes, we've got Steve,
The good
Mickey,
video game
Zavi,
awards or the
and
bad
James.
video game awards?
They could be both. But
We do need a video game Razzies, actually.
We kind of do. We kind of do. But so the Video Game Awards that are usually around early to mid-December each year. It's been going on for, I don't know, quite a while now, many years. And actually, I'm going to share screen a little bit about it so that I can discuss it with you guys. But as we do this podcast, it is the weekend before. And I think we want to discuss the various categories and who we think might.
Which games we agree and disagree are best for each category.
Yes, it's been
and why Hades wins everything.
No, well, it does not win everything, but I do like it. But actually, so this is kind of the baby of Jeff Keighley. He wasn't always officially in charge, but he has become the de facto in charge person.
I'd say he was the face of it, at least.
The face of it, at least, and
majority
he's
of the time.
And he's
because he got a lot of the hate when it was bad too.
Exactly. He's willing to take responsibility for the outcome of the awards, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. And he's definitely been somebody pushing hard to try and get video games to have greater recognition as a form of new media that should be taken seriously.
Yeah, he's been a great figurehead. And I don't mean that in a strictly derogatory way. He really has served that role really well, being a voice in particular when he defended Mass Effect against Fox News, which was very fun. Look it up on YouTube.
Well, in any case, if we look at the history, it's been going on since 2014, but it had as few as, less than 4 million viewers in 2016. And back in those days, the people who were nominated and awarded may or may not be in the audience because the awards themselves were not necessarily taken all that seriously. And again, video games didn't take themselves so seriously. But as we can see, as the years have gone by, more people have attended the actual show. I'm sure more people have also voted. So while there is sort of a board of companies that's overseeing the process as a whole, and there are quite a few of them, they're voted for by the people.
One of the main problems that I have with, or had in the past, was that it felt a little too like, hey, fellow kids, when they were trying to do the Gamer Awards,
Yeah.
And if you want to be taken seriously, you have to kind of treat your award show seriously.
Right.
Yeah. To be kind of like a highbrow affair thing. Not like brought to you by Mountain Dew and Doritos, and we're gonna have this crazy van out front.
It's a good example of where Jeff has done a good job, because he's had candid interviews where he was like, hey man, some years I had to do the Schwick Hydrobot on stage to make the goddamn show. Get off my case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's what detracts, and I think companies think that, if we can relate to kids in that way, they'll because they don't see it as a medium for everybody. They see it as a medium for kids.
Unfortunately.
Or at least
part of the problem.
That's the problem.
That's been the traditional problem, yes. But if we look at last year, it was attended, about 50 million people viewed it worldwide. And it was fairly uncontroversial in that the winners, there wasn't a whole lot of people upset about how that went. Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, getting Game of the Year, but also a lot of other really good games in the list. Death Stranding for Best Game Direction, Best Score and Music, Control Best Art Direction, Fortnite Best Ongoing Game. These were all pretty non-controversial.
I have a question for you. When it comes to annual awards, do you think there's a cutoff time involved for where a game can be included in the category?
Yeah, I'm sure
because I feel like Death Stranding came out pretty late in the year.
It did. In fact, it's actually showing up in some Game Awards. It showed up in the 2020 awards.
Right. So do you think there should be a cutoff time to really criticize a game and have it really filter through that full emotional spectrum of understanding what the game is trying to be?
Yeah, for sure. Death Stranding showed up again this year because it had a PC release.
Right. And I would imagine that, say a week ago, Cyberpunk came out, that they probably would have tried to shoehorn that into some categories. just for the sake
Right.
of like the hype of it, right?
So
Yeah.
so far, it seems like the game makers are not timing their releases for the awards shows in the way
Right.
that you see with like movies, for
And I'm
example.
sure they're including stuff from like as early as like November of last year too in the 2020 awards,
Right.
because that's only fair.
Because
Yeah.
it's only fair for those games to run through the full range of being criticized
Yeah.
before being considered for an award. It wouldn't make
Right.
sense to have something that came out that, like if Cyberpunk wasn't delayed, it'd probably be on this list, but it wouldn't have time to be properly criticized.
Yep. And I think
You
it's a good time to mention how the awards this year end up being a little bit different because of the coronavirus pandemic. A whole huge raft of games were supposed to come out in March of this year that were
Mhm.
delayed, in some cases coming out a little later in the year, in some cases delayed until next year. So that's changed who's going to be in the awards. Did you have something to say, James?
Yeah, I was about the not getting properly reviewed. Do you think anybody would take advantage of that? So like we can put out a game now for the hype, and then because I know who is people behind Crash Team Racing, the reboot of that. Like it was released, got good reviews, and then they changed a bunch of stuff to make it more like microtransactions. So they did it after all the reviews came out.
Yeah.
I think
bad
there are
mouth.
people
Yeah.
that would take advantage of that in the industry, mostly publishers.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, Activision's been doing it with Call of Duty for like 5 years now. I don't know, like a long time.
Well, and in
Yeah.
a way, they do that in general. Like FIFA introduced advertisements to their games that people greatly disliked, and
Right.
but they waited until 2 weeks after most
And
of the reviews
UFC,
were
that
in.
was hilarious.
Yeah,
I feel like a lot has
Boys.
changed though since the whole the blowback from things like Shadow of War,
mm-hmm.
you know, and the Battlefront 2
Mhm.
launch. Like
Battlefront 2 is
those
a good
really,
example.
really predatory things, I think, have kind of stepped back a little
Well,
bit.
it keeps them on their toes because they
Right.
know that word of mouth can screw things up, but they're still
Right.
they're still just gonna like most of the people who play don't follow these stories, so they're still gonna just have it like early release, and then there's gonna be the point where they hit the switch. In terms of timing it for award season, I don't think they're doing that anytime soon. It'd be kind of
No.
funny to see like if we reach a day and
No.
age where like people actually have like the same way in movies. They
Well,
have
I mean it more on the
Oscar
side of
release
like the
window.
game awards than the publishers and developers themselves, right? They
Yeah.
they
Right.
kind of like shoehorn some hype in there to kind of bring some viewership in,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
I
So
think
they'd
too.
be like,
They're
"Is Game of the Year Cyberpunk like it's always been for the past 7 years? Like,
yeah,
like,
like,
will
right-
it win against Hades and the underdog Supergiant?"
yeah. I don't think that's really yet. But give it a few years. The way this thing is growing, maybe that'll
It's very
be real.
it's very
Right now
possible to go
they're-
down that road, and I don't think anybody should.
Yeah, I think right now they're more afraid of the regulators than anything else. Many game companies are under for review for their business practices being too similar to gambling, especially when their games are targeted at kids.
Yes.
You also have things like the Apple versus Epic Games Fortnite controversy, where the role of publishers taking a 30% cut of game sales is under scrutiny by regulators. So there's definitely a lot of jockeying and seeing what they can get away with, one step forward, two steps back with the industry right now. But we'll have to wait a few years, I think, to see how that really
As
pans
there
out.
always is. They always try.
As there always is. Meanwhile, the Game Awards also has to deal with coronavirus and that there is no live audience this time. Even the nominees are being told that if they accept an award, they will do so via video call. And that's not really unusual in the world anymore. It's just they're doing it on a fairly epic scale.
Has there
to-
been any award shows this year
Yeah.
that were done completely virtually?
Yeah, the 2 years ago, I think when Joel McHale, he.
No, I mean like as far as like Oscars, like coronavirus
Oh, and
centric
those-
award shows, like
what they have
Oscars,
tended
Emmys,
to
Tonys,
do
anything like that.
is
everyone in
relatively
their
small
designer pajamas.
audiences, but not completely virtual.
Probably the DICE Awards, because that, I know that DICE had to do their conference, I think, remotely.
Because
and
I
they have awards as
found,
part of that.
so I used to watch wrestling, and ever since COVID hit, I stopped because it's way more boring without people there.
Wrestling gets hit hard by that kind of thing. But I think this
So,
show should be
I'm curious to see
relatively-
how, yeah, something like this, because like, I don't know, there's something about just people speaking to an empty arena that is
That is
really
weird,
kind
yeah.
of weird, and
I think-
don't find it entertaining in any way.
Yeah, the show will
Because you can't connect
suffer.
with people.
The show will
really.
suffer, I think, in one particular aspect, which is that they had some live performances at their last couple of years that were
Right.
actually kind of cool, and there is the audience energy for those things. Outside of that, I don't see that being too
So-
big of a detracting.
My understanding is they're going to have, I think in Tokyo, London, and I forget where in California, 3 stages that
Right.
will accept, live talent. There may be a presenter on the stage, but they
Okay.
won't necessarily. There will be no audiences.
So again, it's weird because I went to a virtual concert like a month and a half ago, I think. When I say why I went to it. Like I bought tickets and I watched it online, right? And it was good and it was enjoyable, aside from the fact that you miss out on the social aspect of it
Right.
and that connection with the audience. So like that's my big concern for a lot of this stuff because that really, really doesn't work for me personally,
I gotcha.
I think I might actually enjoy it in that seeing people accept awards, especially if there are more of them present through video call, and having a sort of intimate dialogue with the fans could be interesting, actually. We'll have to wait and see how it goes. But either way, I do kind of just want to go through the nominees and the categories. Although we've decided to go with the exception of we're not really going to cover esports because we're not.
I'm totally okay with that.
Yeah,
They
we don't-
usually relegate that stuff to like pre-show anyway, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very pre-show, very like
They'll
in
like
the
come
middle of
back from
stuff.
ads and they'll be like, by the way, the person who was voted best coach is blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Like no
Right.
fanfare whatsoever.
It's very much
Yeah. Yeah, and in the same way, if we don't feel strongly about it, I don't know that we should
I don't
necessarily.
play.
I'd rather not dwell on it because I really, first of all, I don't watch esports. I don't enjoy them per se.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think just the personalities behind it, I don't really care for either. So
Yeah, I've enjoyed
that
watching
entire topic.
a couple-
I'd be fine with it.
I've enjoyed watching a couple esports more in the last year. But the nominee, like, it's just too broad, I think, to be mixed in with most of the awards that I think get more fanfare, get more focus.
Right. For example, for me, I've watched esports a few different varieties, and I enjoy that stuff. But I have never played and don't plan to play Call of Duty or watch esports around Call of Duty. So that leaves me with a giant hole in my awareness and knowledge of esports, and that's okay. But it means I don't want to set myself up as.
If I'm gonna watch anything, it's gonna be like AGDQ.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's what I find more interesting than esports.
Alright,
So-
so let's talk.
I'm in the running
So-
for best esports coach.
Oh my
Who
gosh.
cares? No.
James.
You're so funny. So if we skip over the esports, going for the bottom up, we're gonna start with the best debut game. So the nominees are Carrion, Mortal Shell, Raji, An Ancient Epic, and Rookie. And I'm gonna share my screen so we can see.
I don't know any of these except Phasmophobia, which I haven't played, but I've
Yes.
watched people play.
Heard of 3.
Phasmophobia is almost like more of an internet cessation to me than a game. It's similar-ish
It's
to
a
Among Us.
game. Don't
It's
be
fun to
rude.
It's fun to watch other people play it. Probably more fun than it is to play it myself. I did try it, and it's terrifying.
See,
It's-
that's kind of what turns me off from it. I don't like spooks.
I love spooks.
No spooks for me.
I did give that best debut game just because from watching streams. Unfortunately, this is one that this is for the press. Like,
Yeah.
who has time to play every single goddamn game and then have an informed opinion about like these little things? I've
But
heard
even
of Carrion,
the
it
other
looks cool.
4 I still haven't heard of, Like I
Carrion looks
didn't find
great.
anything on these just in my going through of the year.
Right. Yeah. Carrion looks great and also gross. So I'm probably not gonna play it. If I'm honest. So again, it feels like this is that edge where maybe I don't feel informed enough to get too involved, which is interesting because we'll see later on we will know most of these quite well.
Are we
Next-
skipping this one? Because I have
I think we're
no
gonna
interest in
skip
any
it.
of these people.
Yay, Alana. Alana went from like having no presence online to having over 1 million followers in a single year. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'd say I only know half of these people,
Again, I don't
and
care.
I only feel strongly about Alana Pierce.
I'm not gonna say that I don't care. They've done good things with this award, I think. Like
Sure.
they're in a sense choosing like who to center, and I think they've done an okay job.
A streamer award?
Yeah, basically.
Basically.
Content creator of the year.
I
Right.
just don't care for any of them because I think all their personalities.
All
kinda suck.
right. Steve doesn't care.
No, that's fair.
I've never
The
heard of
running
it.
theme.
Very heavy opinions
Um,
on content creators, and I think they all suck.
Wow. Okay.
Well, none of them are winning in your awards.
Mm-mm.
Clearly not.
I didn't vote for
Alright.
one.
All right. Well, we'll skip.
The Steve Awards.
Ugh.
No one wins.
So,
Nobody wins.
Best multiplayer, we have Animal Crossing, New Horizons, Among Us, Call of Duty Warzone, Fall Guys, Ultimate Knockout, and Valorant.
I feel
of
like
the-
this is kind of like one of those topics that you can kind of call.
Well, so
really
Animal
early on.
Crossing, calling that multiplayer to me feels a little
Bit of a stretch.
disingenuous. Yeah, because you can't really play
Yeah, if
multiple
this
people on the same console at the same time, even though
I-
that's a thing you can do in a lot of other Switch games. So
I
that
will
feels weird.
genuinely say that if Animal Crossing New Horizons wins best multiplayer, I will riot. Like
Something wrong has happened.
because
Yeah,
like
I agree.
multiplayer has to do like if your game is online multiplayer, then the infrastructure is part of what we're rating here.
It's all
And
about selling turnips.
fucking Nintendo.
Okay, you got to find who has the best turnip prices,
Tournament
and then go
economy
there.
is what it's all
like
about.
mini game challenges on
I-
the
yeah.
multiplayer mini game challenges.
Yeah,
but
I
that's
think-
about it.
I think Among Us is a huge win. Like
I think Among Us wins.
Yeah.
and that's an
No-
interesting one from the perspective of like what window are you allowed to like
Sure.
rate games, because Among Us has been out for years.
Well, if you
It
look, if you
still
just
deserves
look
to
at,
win best multiplayer 2020.
But
if you
it
look
really
at
cut off this
multiplayer for
year.
the year, right? Like
Not Fall
what
Guys?
really stood out all year was Among Us. Fall Guys
Yeah.
stood out for maybe a week and a half,
And it's still
Yeah,
doing fine.
And
and
Fall Guys is
Valorant
adorable.
the same. And those two
Yeah.
games were probably highest watched. on
Valorant
Twitch.
is Riot Games. They have a big following. Like
I'm
following just
saying-
the streamer numbers, that's
I
not the
think he's talking
full
about
detail.
I'm saying if you look at when people were playing it, right?
Yeah.
Sure,
Right.
sure.
That Fall Guys, Valorant, Warzone, those things didn't last as long as the way Among Us lasted, just a few months,
Right.
and just on top.
And
Maybe.
it's still there. That's the thing. I can see people continuing to play Among Us well into next year. I won't be surprised at all.
My
Where-
vote,
The other ones on this list, meh.
my
you
vote
know,
for Among Us.
Again, not counting Animal Crossing, which as far as I'm concerned shouldn't be in this game.
My vote for Among Us is honestly just like it's also like a public service award. Like Among Us in the year 2020, a social game that like everyone can basically play. Like I played it with people who don't play
Sure.
video games at all. Like
Yeah.
it's
Without this game, how would the teenagers have bullied one another remotely? I mean, what would we have done without it?
why you gotta bring it to the dark side?
Because the dark side is there. So might be a good one for Steve to chime in on best sports / racing. And I always felt it weird that these are in the same
I
category. but
feel
it's-
like
it's
I'm
fine.
biased here, right?
So yeah,
Because we know
so-
I'm going to say F1 2020 purely
That's
because
true.
of
I
the
didn't
sport
know.
and that I think sim racing is the best.
Right.
and
I also don't expect it to win because I foresee the same thing I always see. 2K21 and FIFA 21. Those games are going to win because they draw in the numbers.
because
They're
they always do. I'm willing to bet that FIFA 21 won't win just because of the ad controversy is going to shoot them in the
No,
Well, 2K21 has it
hard on
too.
that. That's again
To a
loud
lesser
corners
extent.
of gamer internet going, "Oh, this is terrible." Most people who play FIFA,
Don't
although
care.
who's going to vote for it? That's the curious thing because
Yeah,
Right.
people who are going to vote
Soccer
for the Game
fans.
Awards, there might
Footy-
be a lot
football
of
fans, as they
general
say.
FIFA people who literally just bring up the page and vote for FIFA and then go back to playing FIFA and don't care about video. I don't know. I just don't know.
I mean, it's
Um,
possible like that Tony Hawk's gets the nostalgia win.
It's very
You know,
possible.
that's a very possible thing because people do love that game.
yeah.
Yeah,
and-
and because the previous games were too old to have been on the Game Awards, so it starts to feel like you get these legacy awards as shows get older and they go
Right.
back and realize, oh man, we never gave an award to so and so.
How long before we get the next category of best remaster?
Oh, God.
It's just a matter of time.
Well, they
I-
already have
I
best
agree with you.
ongoing game, so
Yeah, some sites
Eh,
do that already.
Not the same. So best sim and strategy game. We've got Crusader
Mm.
Kings 3, Desperados 3, Gears Tactics, Microsoft Flight Simulator, which feels like is a whole other thing, and XCOM.
Yeah,
See, that's
it seems-
weird, right? To combine the two because now you have
Yeah.
a
it
sim,
is.
then you have like versus Gears Tactics, which is not really overlap.
Yeah, I've
Right?
always
Yeah.
felt like we have a genre reckoning that we need to deal with, and maybe
Right.
eventually the Game Awards will deal with it because
Yeah.
these games like this really does feel like just taking like we don't have a critical mass of either genre, so let's represent the two genres together. It's weird, but that said, it's it is nice to have these games have a place to stand out because
Yeah.
I do
But how
think
do you
everything
put
here
Gears
is
Tactics and Flight Simulator? How do you even?
Like, how do you compare the two?
yeah.
I played both, and I don't
One
even
is a
know how to do it.
relaxing simulation. One is a like super intense turn-based tactics thing. It's weird, but I do think that like it'd be better for these things to try to take a little bit of a lesson from film and just try to think of genres in terms of like what is the emotion, what is the or even just what is the
Yeah.
mechanical like
Yeah.
commonality,
I feel
because
like
there's
this
not a
is-
lot of mechanical commonality.
I feel like Flight
Right.
Simulator and
Even back in the previous
AI
category.
would sort of be in the same.
Yeah.
Where-
What was that?
whereas-
Which two?
Hmm?
Which two was that, Mikey? You were a bit low
No
there.
Man's Sky and Microsoft Flight Simulator.
Right.
I
Yeah.
can see those
Yeah.
in the same category.
Best open world exploration, maybe.
Just
Sort of, yeah.
best
You can do
vibe
things
game.
like that because
best chill
even
out.
then, a lot of overlap exists in an open world.
Yeah. There's a
Uh,
whole field for
genre, right?
like sort of meditative, long form games
Yeah, best
that feel
meditative
different.
game, like
Yeah.
Sky or Flower.
Or every bullet hell
Flower.
shooter.
Because then I could see in like best open world, I could see Xavi rallying for Horizon Zero Dawn against Microsoft Flight Simulator.
That'd be
That sounds like the
interesting.
funniest battleground of all time.
And everyone
Like,
loses.
just
in this
two
battle.
hills of deeply entrenched people, and then someone in the middle going,
Who
"These
have
games
nothing
have
in
nothing to
common."
do with each other, you psychos."
All right. So I get it. What feels like a weird category. I'm gonna move on to best family.
I'm
Animal
alright with this.
Crossing, Crash Bandicoot 4, Fall Guys again, Mario Kart Live, Minecraft Dungeons, and Paper Mario Origami King.
This is such a
So
weird
when it says
category
family
because,
for
yeah.
family play, right?
Yeah.
Like, are we talking
Yes.
about sitting down with your kids and playing a game, or you play the game while your kids sit there and watch you, or vice versa? Like, how are we
It's
laying out
unclear
this
to me.
category?
It says
I
again,
imagine-
Animal Crossing is a really cute kids game. Is it a family game?
Oh, it's definitely family.
I'd say it's a family game because then it's like, oh well, different people in the household on a Switch coming to
Yeah.
visit each other's islands and be
Well,
together.
Stacey,
And
I
just
dare
like-
you to ask Nina how many hours she's put into Animal Crossing.
Well, so that's the thing too. Is like there are a lot of good kids movies that adults love, arguably more than kids. Toy Story
Yeah.
being a good example. Animal Crossing feels like in that genre.
I
A
think
lot of
most of
adults
these
love
do.
this
I think
game.
most of these do. Like, there's a lot of adult nostalgia for Crash
Mm.
Bandicoot, and there is actually a place in the adult gaming diet for not just nostalgia, but like easygoing games that just
Right.
give you a steady sense of satisfaction.
So-
I mean, you're playing Ratchet and Clank right now.
One of the
Yep.
things I can point out is like best family game. Like I have a coworker that sits next to me at work, and he tells me about how he plays Fortnite with his kid. You know,
Right.
Aw.
so it's like it's a different experience for different
Yeah,
families. So if you're gonna
that's
go
true.
best family, I think it's gonna be best, couch co-op kind of situation.
And one day, fingers crossed, I'll be playing Rogue Company with Gabe.
So, like, part of me wants to give this to Animal Crossing, and part of me feels like that's not really right for this category. But
So I ended up giving it to Animal Crossing because I feel like that's the most family-esque of the games.
Mm.
yeah,
Purely from
I
like
do-
how you would spend time with people in your
Right.
family.
I remember a
on a
lot of
platform.
stories from people who ended up in coronavirus lockdown, and this was a way that parents could get through to their kids who
Right.
are otherwise just depressed they couldn't go to school. and
Yeah.
stuff like
I
that.
actually threw this one at a game that I did not enjoy, which was Paper Mario.
Huh.
I am enjoying Paper Mario. I just don't have time for it. There's some jokes in there that are very funny.
It's
I will
it's
give you
a
that.
cute game, but to me, it's not a winning game. But All right, so best fighting. We got Grand Blue
Oh God, I
Fantasy
hate this category. I'm
versus
out. I'm out.
Mortal
I'm
Kombat
out.
11, Street Fighter versus Champion Edition, One Punch Man, A Hero Nobody Knows, and Under Night in Birth EXE. I don't know
Good
that.
try.
So
I'm out.
I don't know.
I'm out. I have nothing to say about fighting games. I hate them all.
Okay,
Duly noted. Steve continues to hate everything.
sure.
Not everything.
Everything, clearly.
Most things.
I gotta throw it to Grand Blue Fantasy. What they've done with their single player content is ridiculous, and it actually synergistically like teaches you how to play a character in a way that most other fighting games don't. I haven't played MK11, to be fair. I've heard good things about it in the same dimension.
Now I suspect the category is probably going to go to Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter because that's what the community feels like it is leaning towards. But I would say both Grand Blue Fantasy and One Punch Man
The
are
community hates Street Fighter
more
5.
interesting to me. Well, yes and no. They love to
About
hate
that.
it. Might be more correct to say.
Maybe,
They,
maybe.
they may hate it. They play it anyway.
Yeah, but they're
It's
not
got
gonna
it's
vote
got
for it.
issues with netcode that again in coronavirus lockdown just feel unforgivable.
Yeah, I think
to
Mikey's
Western
right. I don't think
audience.
they're
Well,
gonna
actually,
vote
things
for
have
it.
been corrected with it. It's just
Yeah.
more of it never got past its bad will. So
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine people.
I'll wait for a Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm game to pop up in this category.
There's been like 80.
There you go.
That's the only close to like fighting game I've played.
Yeah.
Yeah, they corrected a lot of the things within the first 2 years, but it just sort of still got this bad rap. It just seemed to be like anything that the company did, they complained about. So, after a while, you just kind of leave, and you're just like, well, this had a bad
Yeah.
review.
Didn't it
That's-
hit a point of being like,
That's it.
okay, now the game is fine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's basically one of those.
Ish.
I think broadly speaking, like there's still some foundational things that people will disagree and be like, this isn't my kind of Street Fighter, but that the netcode stuff was like on a basic consumer review level, it's solid now. But it's as a quick aside, it is the kind of we've come up a couple times against something that reminds me we should mention that these awards are determined by some kind of weighing split between audience votes and press cabal. So in terms of our projections and whatnot, that's good to keep in mind.
Man, I hate the
in terms
game
of what
press
we'll
too.
see Thursday. Steve,
Yeah.
stop hating things. It's not a good
No.
look.
All right. So best role playing. That's an interesting one. So you got the Final Fantasy VII remake, Genshin Impact, Persona 5, Wasteland 3, and Yakuza Like a Dragon.
So I'm definitely torn in this category between two games.
Wow.
Which
Persona
ones?
5, because I think it's the one RPG that I've been able to play and get substantially through it and really enjoy the whole experience.
Mm-hmm.
Genshin Impact is very, very fun, and I just haven't played enough of it to really have it outweigh Persona 5.
Mm.
And then I haven't played Wasteland, I haven't played Yakuza, and then Final Fantasy VII Remake is just not up there with the other two.
Yeah, I think it's interesting when Final Fantasy first came out, I was pretty enamored of it, but it wore off real fast
Mhm.
for me. Whereas like Yakuza, for example, seems to be building momentum, which is interesting because people that would not normally play a game with that name are being told, no, man, game is freaking hilarious. You should play it. And they're getting keyed into it and they're showing interest. Genshin Impact is a real interesting one. I see both a lot of love and a lot of hate for that game.
Well,
And
I think it's because of the people that don't like the gacha mechanics, right? People who are very much against that are going to be against this because that's
And
what
I don't
it
think
is a
that
gacha
that's
game.
justified. Like, it might be fair to call it a gotcha game. I'm not gonna try to die on a hill for that, but if it is, it's an extraordinarily gentle one. Like
That's
you
how I
can,
feel.
you can grind out characters, and it's a free to play game. And at some point, they got to make money. Like you just
Yeah.
can't be that entitled about it. But I enjoy
Part
Genshin.
of the
It's just
issue,
more off
it's
for
free
me.
to play, but the amount you can spend on the game is pretty absurd.
Sure.
Right.
That's all those critiques definitely apply.
It
For me-
applies, but I don't think it ever felt invasive, and that's
Exactly.
where I think a lot of gacha games get you. Is they
For me,
feel invasive.
Genshin was a great time sink for a little while. I enjoyed grinding a bit, but then the pace of progress slowed enough in terms of like interesting gameplay, and that's very foundational. That ground to a halt, and that's when it basically lost interest to me. There's just foundationally, there's not enough there in the combat to regularly do it. And then when I unlocked co-op and I tried it, it was very lackluster. It kind of felt like Nintendo-ish, and that kind of, oh, this is janky, or maybe even like early Monster Hunter World. I know you guys had some trouble. Yeah.
Yeah,
But not just that. Foundationally, their like model for how the world runs in multiplayer mode versus single player mode is like there's so much shit you just can't do when you have someone in your world. It's just so annoying versus something like Division 2 where it's just like
Hey,
if someone's
Toddy.
in my world, it's whatever.
Mikey's trying to talk and I can't hear him at all.
Oh,
What are you
that's
saying,
weird.
Mikey?
Mike is very low for me as well.
He's low, yeah.
Okay, maybe that's why.
Do
I'm talking and
more yelling.
Do more yelling. The last thing I
but-
wanted to mention is Yakuza, I think, seems really promising. I played a little bit of Kiwami, and I honestly think this needs to be a JRPG, so I'm excited to play it eventually.
Yeah. So Mikey, what were you saying that I couldn't hear previously?
I was saying basically that you know, as far as these 5 goes, my input is that Remake was great. Persona 5 was great, but those 2 I struggle with because I mean, well, Persona 5 more in the sense of it's a you know, a re-release with
Mhm.
an added chapter, and the added chapter, even though it is quite significant, is it going to win the best role-playing game for me? Wasteland 3 I didn't play. Yakuza, like you, Stacy, I'm in the middle of it, and it just seems to be building and building into something great. And then Genshin, which is such a strange entry because, I mean, Zombie, I mean, I think I'm the only one here that's actually sort of a Genshin person that plays all the time. You know,
Mhm.
every 2 weeks there's sort of been a story, like a story add-on that's significant with cutscenes, and you do things and it moves the story, and it's quite fantastic. I mean,
Very cool.
I think you played the first area in Mondstadt where it seems like, you know, there's going to be 7 areas, and in the initial release there's 2 big areas. So the final mission for like the area was like fantastic, and in this time, I think I talked about on the podcast, they released the final mission for the Chinese inspired area. And you're just like, what the hell is this game? And you're kind of saying like, wow, this is pretty great. Like sort of the things you do. And the world building is really the part I think that's really fantastic. So
Yeah. It
it's
feels like
those
there is a
things
lot
that-
of game in this game and still a lot more
yeah,
coming.
but it does have some of that, and I wouldn't say gotcha. I think it's just more of a free to play game than less than a gotcha, because remember, the gotcha is only tied to the characters, and once you get the characters that you like, the stacking system, like the star system on the characters, they do apply to a sort of talent or augments to their abilities, but there's 3 other areas where you can pump things into, which you have to grind, that actually significantly change the way your character plays. So honestly, if you get the characters that you like, you don't even need to go into that gotcha system. You can play the game, and remember, playtime isn't locked. Your play isn't locked behind an energy system. The rewards are. So I'm just thinking of Stacy and Merge Dragon. So you can
Yep.
fight that ice monster all you want. You just won't be able to open the chests, you know.
Right.
And that's
Yep.
it. So I was very torn. I think I'm actually between Genshin, maybe a Genshin, and like a Final Fantasy.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tricky one.
Trixie Habit.
All right, so what
Trixie-
does
Trixie
Steve
one.
hate now?
Actually,
This is the
One of
hardest
these
You
is
hit
ready?
not like
category.
the other.
are you ready? Valhalla.
Really? Whoa! I'm surprised. No hate for Jedi Fallen Order, really.
I didn't finish it, so.
It was good. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
But I did finish Miles Morales yesterday, so
That's just a lovely game.
it's Spider-Man, and the Spider-Man games have proven they're just very, very well done.
Yeah.
They're very accurate to like comic stuff, but not in a
Sure.
fan service kind of way.
I
Sure.
disagree with that for the 2016, but that's okay.
I mean, I didn't think there
Right.
was like over the
What's
top
funny
fan
is
service stuff.
This category though.
But as far as this
Yeah.
category goes, I
Yeah.
mean, like, there's some
I-
good games here.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, like this
Yeah.
is one of those. The pack is really tight, and I don't know. It could go for any of these things.
It is a
Yeah,
tight pack.
yeah. I think Last of Us may come out on this one. It's done well in other game awards
I think it will.
taking
'cause
place this year.
I don't think any of the other games stack up to how well The Last of Us did.
I don't know. I think Ghost of Tsushima did, but I don't think it was played enough.
Well,
to-
Ghost of
be
Tsushima
attention.
suffered because coming off of The Last of Us, I wasn't ready for any more like heavy stuff.
Sure.
I was
Exactly.
like, I was like
Sold well.
defeated. You know,
Ghost sold well. I think
It did.
it was very solid. For me, it's Miles, and it's for I did a little bit of reflecting on it. It's for a strangely specific reason. Miles Morales is so goddamn tight, like just lengthwise, that
Mhm.
as an adventure, it's punchier than anything else here. Like Last of Us Part 2 dragged intentionally, and that's fine, and I recognize it in other dimensions. Ghost of Tsushima was fantastic, and it was epic, but it still had a little bit of open world, like roam around and what am I doing and all that.
It had a
Miles
little
is
too much
just
shiny penny,
so
collect
punchy.
flowers.
Miles felt like
Yeah.
the
I
length.
100% agree with you because of the
Yeah.
way that their content has been laid out, right? The side missions and the main missions, nothing feels like it's pulling in either direction, right?
Yeah.
Like the main story doesn't feel like it's pulling you away from the side missions, and the side missions aren't pulling you away from the main story. Everything is very
Yeah.
focused, it's very concise, and it knows exactly what it's trying to accomplish.
So in
It's
terms of
it's
feeling like
very
I was on an
tight.
adventure,
You
Yeah.
know,
so good.
The
And
the closest thing to side missions they have are these little trading missions, and those are just plain useful in helping you understand the game and getting
Yeah.
access to all your
right, to
abilities.
say that I've already got 95% of Spider-Man complete versus not getting that close on any of the other games, it goes to show you how well it's done at keeping your attention, keeping you focused on the things you want to play in the
Yeah,
game.
and I kind of want to recognize that at a time when so many games are started and not finished. I want to encourage games that are playable in full, and you walk away from it feeling like that's time well spent.
And that's why I think I've walked away from a lot more open world games and gone for more like linear stuff because it's a more focused
Yeah.
experience. It know what it's trying to get out of the game, and
Right.
it's not wasting your time. You know,
Right, but I also want to like take a moment to kind of talk about the underlying issues with action adventure games as a whole, being where you basically punch, shoot, hurt people as the main mechanic of the game. Last of Us and Ghost of Tsushima are trying to deal with that tension in their own ways, and the rest of these don't really do that.
Ori is
Yeah.
Ori does too. You're right.
non-violent.
It seems like the
Ish.
real outlier in this listing.
Exactly. Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Actually, yeah. So
So let's
I
have a
don't
puzzle
know.
platformer, an adventure
Exactly.
platformer.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I have a lot of mixed feelings about this. I'm not sure which way I'm going to go on this one because there's so many good games in this category, and I want to contrast that to the next one, which is just action. Period. So the idea
Well,
is
hang
let's
on,
take
Mikey.
out.
Thoughts on action adventure at all?
Yeah.
Mikey? Oh, having audio problems? Oh,
dead
Yeah, I
air.
don't know if you guys could hear
oh,
me.
I can hear you.
Oh,
Yeah,
Now
now
we
I
can.
can.
Am I, because I'm trying to get a word in and it doesn't seem like.
I think you
as a-
might have some issue with the distance to your microphone
Yeah.
because
It's
it's
a
not
software
picking.
thing.
Yeah, it's not picking
Raise
you
your
up
hands.
when you're trying to when you're trying to get the thought in. Like I got nothing.
Yeah. Nothing at
Yeah.
all.
Go
last
for a
time.
ye olde finger.
I might have to leave and come back then. It's because I'm not able to get anything in. All the time.
Anything you want to throw in for action adventure?
This is actually a pretty broad category. I think we all know which one is going to win. But I
Do we?
think, yeah, I think it's either honestly between The Last of Us or Ghost. I think everything else here is just not. It's not.
Honorable mentions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not going to. And I think Ghost might take it just because that seems to be a lot more enamored. There was no controversy behind it, and it's sort of a darling. So I really think.
Mm.
Well, I do think they do spend a lovely amount of time coming up with their mythology and dealing with history
Yeah,
and really drilling down to creating characters that support the main theme of the story.
yeah,
It was beautifully acted and it was a wonderful narrative.
Mhm. yeah,
So if it does win, I won't be too surprised. And The Last of Us is such a dark, dark game. But it has some pretty impressive characterization and some interesting mechanics. I still feel like it could have been, that last bit of polish and or, reconsidering the order and the amount of content in the game would have done it a lot of good.
Mm.
yeah.
But considering how ambitious it was in the first place, it's kind of hard to fault them.
Yeah.
Too hard.
But moving on from the ambiguous to the straight up let's punch stuff.
Yes. So Doom Eternal, you can't get much more straight punch stuff than that.
I really can't.
You really can't. Hades is, we could go on all day about that one, but we won't. Half-Life Alyx, which is primarily a VR game, but very nicely done. Nioh 2 and Streets of Rage 4.
Quick to the Genesis.
Good choice. Yeah.
The Genesis mobile.
I have to give this one to Doom Eternal. Because of the action-packed nature and fast-paced,
And
and just how well the presentation is.
The presentation's awesome. I think I agree with you, but particularly because after such an amazing 2016 revival for Doom,
Mhm.
they did not rest on their laurels. They really went at it for Eternal. They made the locomotion truly its own beast and layered it into the existing foundation so well.
The maps are beautifully done,
Yeah,
and it's well calibrated, as they call it, a sort of action adventure chess, where the
yeah.
enemies work in a different and unique way, and combined together, they force you to constantly push forward, rather than backing up and being tactical and
And be
waiting.
considerate.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very much like the best defense is a good offense, right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
constantly going in further and further and pushing harder and harder to
Right.
get like your health back, your armor back, your
Yeah.
ammo and stuff.
Sure.
They don't want you to fall back and wait for your health to regen and all that other stuff. It's very much
Right.
like go in there and shoot as much as you can. And if you can't shoot anybody, saw them in half.
Yeah. And at the same time, there is a part of me that's got a soft spot for Hades, because at this point I've played over 300 escape attempts in this game, and I am still discovering new combinations, because you have weapons, you have boons from the various Olympic gods, of which there are many.
Right.
You have weapon upgrades, and you have random amounts of health and money that might be added that you can use in so many different ways, that
Right.
it is the action itself that is constantly changing that keeps me coming back to this game. But is it necessarily the best action game? There are
That's
other things about Hades that make it good.
that's kind of where I made my distinction, right? Because Hades has this kind of moments where when you do die, you step back into the house and you have conversations. And it's kind of this big break in the action where you focus on things like story and music and atmosphere.
Right.
Whereas with Doom, it's like a nonstop cacophony of violence, right?
Yes.
But I do think
So,
for pacing
for me-
reasons, they actually both have that, because in Doom Eternal, returning to the ship, that is the same thing. It's not as story focused, but it is
Right.
serving that pacing function.
And in the sense of it, I chose that because their description for it is for the best game in the action genre focused primarily on combat.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I gave it to Doom Eternal for that. And
Yep.
that's me trying to be as unbiased as I can, because biased Steve would have given it to Hades.
How
much I like Hades.
I hear you
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah, that's
I do
and
think-
that's the tension with these awards.
And I
too.
do think it's nice to see Alex up there, because
Mhm.
they didn't try to half-ass anything with that game. They really
Yeah.
genuinely were like, this is a VR Half-Life game. We're not fucking around. You need to take cover. The enemies are going to kill you. You need to move. You need to think tactically. And if you're not like going to get accustomed to doing all that stuff in VR, you're going to vomit from motion sickness. Have fun.
Yeah, which was my problem.
I look forward to trying it out at some point in the future. I just I have to get a VR headset first.
Sure. Fair enough.
And I'm just torn between which one to buy.
So, Mikey, do you have thoughts? Do you need to?
Mikey had
Plug
to
out back in?
leave.
Yeah, okay. So, right. I guess we'll just move on then.
So I guess the next category is, my question is, what feature or addition are they talking about? Because they don't really break it down here.
Yeah.
And
They
I
did.
don't, and I
And
know like Valhalla and Legion had the whole like the audio accessibility thing where it reads the menus to you.
Mhm.
And I know a few of the games out there now have like the colorblind modes where you can change it, but like I don't know what feature they're looking
Well,
at.
I think it's
for
worth
each of the
reading out loud, this little blurb right here.
Yeah, recognizing software hardware that is pushing the medium forward by adding features, technology, and content to help games be played and enjoyed by an even wider audience. I think they've left it broad for
They've
a
left
reason.
it broad, but it doesn't really give me a reason as to why you chose these
It's
Yeah.
and
very
why these are the nominees. It's very much
True.
like you got to go and find out for yourself why it's so good for that.
Like Hyperdot
sure.
feels like it was more included because of the type of game it is,
Mm,
and its ability to draw in people who might not play traditional games as
Sure.
much.
Right.
Whereas The Last of Us Part 2 has so many ways to control how well and how easily you aim, or what UI is visible or not visible to you, that it helps
Mhm.
people who have various disabilities potentially play a game that might otherwise be inaccessible to them.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that this is a good category where, like, I don't care who wins. I think it's awesome that we're broadly trying to recognize and celebrate a whole swath of games that are pushing accessibility in various ways.
Right.
But I do want to quickly say that I
Okay.
gotta give, hey, Mikey,
Hey,
it's
you sound much
your
better.
turn. You
Yay.
sound
All right.
excellent. Yes, beautiful. Such a good voice.
Now probably this will be a much better experience for me.
Sweet.
Yes.
Sweet. So I was just gonna say I want to single out Valhalla for a moment, although it's not that this is the only game that's doing this, but they very specifically have a very simple part of their difficulty selection, which I generally like, but they also have like an exploration difficulty that is simple in terms of what it's toggling on and off, but I really like that it's there. It's really just setting whether you know on your compass, like at what distance everything is, or you can turn that stuff off. And I'm someone who has struggled with the AC games because I basically am like super ADHD when I'm in them. And whether it's the drugs that I'm taking or like that they genuinely made Valhalla designed better, and it's probably both. This one just feels like it's not like this anxiety-inducing Skyrim type thing where someone runs up to you and goes, "I have a quest for you," and you're just like, "God, no! I'm trying to do one fucking thing."
Right. I've
actually
already
feels
got
like a
20
relaxing.
quests. No.
Yeah,
Mm.
I'm actually having a relaxing time in Valhalla.
It
and
feels
that
less
is
so,
huge.
but it's still there for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
very much still there for me, where it's like, stop
Information
distracting me. I'm trying to do one thing. Oh.
information overload is a problem with open world games in particular, and game inventories as a subsection of a problem that needs to be better
Sure.
resolved. And we're seeing games tackle that in ways that are interesting and useful. I honestly can't figure out why Grounded is in this list, actually. As
Yeah,
much as
maybe
I
they
like
did
the
something
game,
with their accessibility. I
Probably.
know as a general rule now
not that I
going
recall.
forward, like Watch Dogs and Valhalla have like a pretty forward like accessibility. Like when you boot up the game, text to speech is on. It tells you to turn it off immediately before you start anything. There's all these accessibility options that come up right before you do anything in the game.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
and
It's the
yeah,
idea. It's the simple idea of leave
yeah,
it on until you're sure you don't need it,
need it.
instead
Yeah,
of leave it off and then hope that somehow somebody who can't hear or read or whatever will somehow find
yeah.
a way to turn the menu
Find it
option
in the
on.
menu.
Yeah,
Right.
so it was refreshing to sort of see it, but it was a little scary when you're come on, no, 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 and you hear and you're like, wait, what's going on? Okay, and then you're
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, and you're just like, okay, simple. Do you need this? Nope. Turn it off, and then that's it.
Yeah, I literally was messing around for work with turning on all sorts of crazy accessibility stuff on my iPhone. And then the
Yeah,
moment I heard it in Valhalla, I was like, they did that.
I
yeah,
love it so much. Yeah, no, that's very real. And while I want to encourage this in general, I don't see one of these that's super hardcore standing out to me.
Right.
Having watched you, I haven't played Valhalla, but for like a very short period of time. But I've watched Zombie play it, and just the simple, stupid things they've done, like putting a great big giant beacon going from the ground into the sky, and more or less indicating to you this is a main quest line, this is a
mm-hmm,
place to get loot, or this is a side quest that might be amusing, but
mm-hmm,
you don't have to go do
mm-hmm.
it. Like that actually, why wasn't this that way years ago for everyone?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
something the minute you see it, you're like, wow, this is dumb that this hasn't been the norm all this
yeah,
time.
yeah. So it seems like, yeah, I guess it either goes to Valhalla or Watch Dogs because I think they've been the most forward about it.
Well, Last of Us Part 2 had a lot of good stuff, man.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, but it wasn't like what I my point saying is that it wasn't forward. It wasn't accessibly forward. You still had to go in and like check that stuff out.
No, if I remember correctly, they kind of like give you those selections pretty up front.
part of the configuration when you start the game does include some accessibility
Yeah.
stuff, and there's a much deeper configuration menu.
Oh,
I
okay.
understand that,
All
like,
right.
I
So
understand the onboarding is obviously crucial, but like, you can mess with Last of Us for like, particularly for people with motor disabilities.
Yes.
You can make that game very playable, and
Right.
for
Mm,
to be able to make a modern shooter very playable for someone with motor
okay.
disabilities, that's a lot.
that's
That's
still
big.
something. Yeah. Even
Mm.
though it could have been done in maybe a more fluid
Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
at least they're trying,
Yeah.
which is what
And
most games like that
yeah.
don't even try to do.
And
Yeah.
I guess the point I was trying to make is that all three of those games do it well,
Mm.
but we're talking about a winner. And my point is that it being right there forward makes either of those games win
I
that
can't
option.
choose Valhalla
Yeah.
because it's bad and I hate it.
Just the game itself.
Yeah.
You can't
Steve,
do it.
we've switched roles. Remember when it was E3 and I was like the hater and you were like, get on the hype train.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
No,
real.
I've had my eyes opened. I hate everything now. It's all,
But-
it's all terrible.
I did want to take a quick second because Mikey was out at the time to see if he has strong feelings about this best action category.
True.
Best action. Hades. I think Hades wins it for me. I don't know. I didn't play Alex. I played a little bit of Neo 2 and Streets of Rage 4. Good, but it's not award winning. But I think Hades is definitely is a genre defining game. It definitely pushed like a roguelike sort of game forward. Narratively, I think also, I can't remember a roguelike that you wanted to play for to get the narrative. I mean, we haven't done a spoiler cast, but the reasons you want to beat the game are so good. There's like a actual reason, like, yeah, I need to beat this game again. And I think we said like, and you want to beat it. It's not even like, I want to be a completionist. It's like, it's for story purposes only. You want to beat the game again.
Most of the time
Yeah.
when I play a
Yeah.
roguelike, it's because I hate myself.
Yeah.
Right. So this was the dichotomy we came up with. Doom Eternal feels very good just purely for the action, right? But Hades has that combination of really great game action, but then balancing that with the narrative in
Yeah.
a way. So
Yeah.
it becomes a tough category in
Yeah.
a sense. But
It's
anyway,
good running.
yeah. So let's move on then. Best VR AR.
None.
I can't speak to that.
I did play a couple of these.
I was just so impressed by Half-Life Alex. I can't imagine anything else.
I would say I think the two standouts would probably be Alex or Dreams. Dreams from a creative standpoint and
Yeah.
Alex from an execution standpoint.
That's very well said. Yeah, I
What
think
is
that's
Dreams?
very, very favorable.
It's basically just a canvas.
people-
You know, you create whatever the heck you want using the tools that they give you, whether
Yeah.
it's a platformer or an open world exploration game or some kind of sim. Like
Yeah.
you
And-
create what you
and-
want there.
Media Molecule creators of Little Big Planet.
Right.
And I love Dreams. It was amazing, but it's also very hard to use.
Right.
I want to,
Frankly.
yeah, I don't believe by any stretch it'll win, but I do want to say I played and very much enjoyed Saints and Sinners, Walking Dead. It was a solid mix of tension and action. It was novel in the VR space. And I do think that broadly, this category will feel novel for maybe another couple of years before we actually have a slate that we're like, oh man, I don't know.
These are all great. Yeah, no, it's going to be a while. And that's okay. But look at how far we've come from where we would have been a few years ago.
When everybody and their grandma has a VR headset.
Yeah, those will be when this category gets super interesting. Eventually, this may not even be its own category, right?
Yeah.
But for a
games-
while, it will be.
What grandma game is going to get nominated for Best VR
Oof,
/ AR?
that'll be the day. Best VR AR family game. All
Cooking
Giving
grandma.
up on the controllers.
Job
The
simulator.
future.
Job
So-
Simulator.
Community
is-
support.
This is one. Yeah, this is an interesting one. So community support. We've got Apex Legends, Destiny 2,
Recognizing.
Fall Guys. That's interesting to me. Fortnite, No Man's Sky, and Valorant.
So
Mm.
recognizing a game for outstanding community support, transparency, and responsiveness, including social media activity and game updates and patches.
So we're talking about
Ah.
really the dialogue between the creators
Right, and that's
and
how
the community.
One
That's
of
what
those
we're
things of,
really
like,
talking about here.
reading how the category wants to lay it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
It's like it seems like an interaction thing, right? Like a back
Yeah.
and forth between the fans and then the developers taking that criticism and applying it to the
Yeah,
game.
this is
Right,
where I
so-
feel like I have to abstain because I don't know those details.
I have to
Well,
also
I mean-
because the only one I play is Destiny 2, and
Traditionally,
I don't feel
Destiny
they
2.
listen.
Traditionally, Destiny 2 has been the best because they do talk, but I'm thinking of things like Fortnite, No Man's Sky. You're the only one that's played Valorant, but I mean Fortnite. I mean they're always changing things and modding things, but also we have to
Fortnite
think.
is almost unique in the way it lives on and creates and
Yeah,
deals with internet memes
yeah.
in a way that the kids freaking love, and
Yeah.
nobody
That's
else is
probably
doing
the
that.
largest scale
I was
community
about to say
team.
you can't even it's so hard to compare Fortnite to anything else
You
because it's
almost
reached
can't
such a critical
divide.
mass. Yeah,
You almost can't divide the community support from the game creation,
yeah,
and that's
Yeah.
interesting.
yeah. Nothing on this
Fortnite-
list is a cultural creator like
Yeah.
Fortnite is, and it's
Mhm.
like saying, okay, guys, let's compare.
It's like
you
Twitter
know,
was one
yeah,
of the nominees.
yeah,
If,
yeah,
if
yeah.
I had to sit here and you told me, and I played none of these games, but I had
Doesn't
to pick which
belong on
one
here.
had
Yeah.
to had to probably
Fortnite is
have
the
the
Reddit of
best,
video games. I
probably
guess.
had the best back and forth between its community and the people that play its game, I'd have to pick Fortnite because
Yeah.
that one seems to have that kind of balance
Yeah.
where things are changing so frequently. I
Yeah.
don't see that in
It's
Destiny.
created culture.
I
It's
don't
Well, I
see
will
that
say-
in Sky.
I will
don't see
say-
that in
For
the
better
other
or for
games.
worse.
As far as the social media atmosphere portrays it. you
Well,
know?
I will say that like No Man's Sky has actually definitely been responsive to the community, and it's been out for years, but like they're not putting out random content that they're interested in anymore. Like they are definitely engaged, and
Right.
like part of the reason, if I understand what I read back when I read it, that they decided to do like a horror update was because people were like, this game's too pleasant. We need like scary shit. Like a lot
Yeah.
of classic sci-fi and like Alien is
I will
scary.
say this. I kind of want to give No Man's Sky an honorable mention because here's a game that when it first came out, which was a long time ago.
It was early access.
Well, yeah, there was a sense
No,
that
it wasn't, but it was, is what I'm saying.
it effectively was. There was a sense that people felt that they overpromised and underdelivered. So there was a lot of community backlash against the game. And then here we are years later. Not only have they corrected for that backlash, but they've actually created a much more full-fledged game than people thought they were going to.
It
What could
didn't-
have been a failed project has actually become very successful because they listened.
They genuinely
it
buckled
didn't
down. and
help
just
that
worked.
what happened was on launch was they released something, people backlashed against it, and there was no response whatsoever.
Right.
That really pushed them back.
Well, yeah, but it was also kind of the right call, I think.
I didn't say it was wrong. I just think
Yeah.
it's
just
where
a
they
weird,
lost a lot of ground with
yes,
people.
with
you know?
the community for sure. They're such a small team, and I've heard them speak out about how like when that happened, they were like, "We understand why everyone's frustrated. We
Right.
want to keep working on this game too and make it way better."
We get it.
And
Yeah.
and I think part of what was interesting is that they responded by just shutting up and just
Yeah.
working on the
And
next
working
up.
on the game.
doing the work that people wanted them to do rather than
Yeah.
spending all their time.
And all their
Other
updates have
feedback.
been free, which is freaking wild.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I still would give it to Fortnite because they're nuts, but with an
Yeah,
honorable-
I just feel like the game doesn't even belong on here anymore. It just it honestly it's sort
Yeah.
of like
Social
it's
media.
sort
It's
of
gonna
like
keep winning all the
Minecraft.
time.
Yeah, it's sort
Yeah.
of like Minecraft.
Just
and
wait
you have
till we
these,
get
like,
to the
games that are
ongoing
just,
game
like,
category.
The what? Oh,
Just wait till we
ongoing.
get to the ongoing game category.
I'm guessing Fortnite wins again.
Yeah.
Best
Well,
Oasis Imposter.
oh boy. So best
Best
mobile
mobile.
game. Among Us, Call of
Mm.
Duty Mobile, Genshin Impact, Legends of Runeterra, and Pokemon Cafe Mix.
Okay.
I'm gonna try this
Another
Pokemon
one
Cafe
where
mix and
I
see
feel
what's
like
going
this
on.
category is in and of itself
It's
weird.
weird.
It used to
Yeah.
be that mobile games were so different from regular games, there would be no
Hmm.
crossover. So what you were doing is you were recognizing a part of the game industry that would otherwise not get its due.
Like Flappy Bird.
But now you've got like Call of Duty, Genshin Impact, Among Us. These are also well-known console/PC titles. So what are we doing here?
I'm gonna go out on a limb here. You see how on the right side of this page, there's a little thing that lets you know that the best mobile game has been presented by LG Wing and Qualcomm Technology.
Oh, you know what?
This-
That's a good.
this-
That's a good thing to
this-
spot.
This
That's a good thing.
like I'm gonna go out on a limb. This category exists in order to get the show made. Like
Right.
Mm.
This
it's
is one of those
okay to
things.
have a place for some of these games to shine because some of them, like Pokemon Cafe Mix, might not have an opportunity to shine anywhere else. And
Right.
that's not the worst thing in
And
the world.
oh no, poor Pokemon.
I'm sure
What will they do with
Pokemon
that
Cafe
recognition?
Mix is doing fine.
Yeah.
I'm sure Pokemon Cafe
Number
Mix is
one.
doing fine.
revenue IP of all time or whatever.
So I will say that I've played Among Us, Call of Duty, and Genshin on mobile, and I actually gave my vote to Call of Duty because I voiced my opinions once on why I don't like Genshin on the phone
Mm,
because of the control aspect, whereas
Yeah.
I think Call of Duty does a very good job with it.
yeah.
And that is really what
And
decided my
Among
vote.
Us, I've tried on the phone just to see what it was like, and it's okay.
Right.
But it doesn't feel like a mobile game. It
It
feels
feels
like a
much
PC
better.
game that was stuck on a mobile device as best they could figure it
It
out.
does
which
feel much
wasn't
better when you
great.
play it on a PC. And if you have the option, you might as well play it on PC where it was kind of like made for, you know?
At the same time, it is significant that Among Us is on mobile. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
it
like
is.
it being nominated.
Yeah, sure.
yeah.
But again, if I went straight off of gameplay and how much I enjoyed it, Call of Duty Mobile, just for the pure ability to take an FPS, put it on mobile,
Yeah.
and make it
And-
work really
And
well.
frankly, I think it's going to win for that reason.
Yeah.
Not only is it on mobile, but
Yeah.
from everything I hear, again, not as a Call of Duty player, it does it well.
Yeah.
It does
Yeah.
it
I think
in a
I-
way that people like.
I think I threw my vote to Genshin Impact actually, just because I was slightly shocked that it was largely the same game, and because Genshin Impact is not a terribly hard game, actually, I had a perfectly fine time
And
taking my
some
phone.
things work better on mobile in Genshin.
Oh yeah, you think so?
The all of the UI works way better.
Mm,
Not
Mhm.
smashing down on the square button and just tapping what you want.
I can understand that. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's true
You-
too. I
yeah.
will give you that, yeah.
And
So
I
I,
just
I
think-
think you poo-pooed it a little bit too quickly, Steve.
Well,
No, I
think
didn't. No, absolutely not. From a gameplay standpoint,
it's there. Yeah.
I'm not talking about menus. Menus are easy to navigate on a touch device.
Right. You
Yeah.
prefer to use a
Game-
controller.
Oh,
No
right.
question.
You
From
say
a
that.
gameplay standpoint
maybe-
and how much I enjoyed the game on
Right.
that platform,
Yeah. Call
Yeah.
of Duty
Call of
takes it.
Duty absolutely wins.
But I think like I like seeing Genshin here because like this is the poster child for how to do the cross-platform thing in my mind.
Yeah.
Like this is a technically marvelous game in,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, and it's just the same game.
Yeah.
It just is.
Yeah, and that's the
It's-
thing. I would love to see this broken into two categories: having a mobile-only winner and a
Mobile
cross-platform
experience.
mobile game
Yeah.
winner.
Yeah.
Because these are so different from each other, and it's important because when we're looking at a cross-platform game, I'm looking at whether the controls still make sense, whether it feels inclusive.
Does
A
it have
game like
cross-account,
Among Us that
cross-save?
wouldn't be on phones would then alienate a lot of people from what's otherwise become a very popular game.
Yeah.
And
But
then if
as
you have
some-
two
as-
awards, you have
this
more
year.
sponsorships.
Yeah.
Sure. But yeah, I would want to give it, if it were possible, to more than one winner in this category.
Yeah. Yeah. They have some good nominees this year, I think. There's been a lot of outstanding releases. Or games that have come back from the dead.
If you will, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a good category. Best indie, we've got Carrion, Fall Guys, Hades, Spelunky 2, and Spiritfarer. And I'm gonna just immediately go "Pff, Hades, duh,
Mm.
and just call it a day. But it's not
I-
to say
I-
that Fall Guys, Carrion, Spelunky 2, these are all good games.
As someone who played the original Spelunky and has no interest in Spelunky 2, I feel like Vincent is going to be very, very excited to see Spelunky win if it does.
Sure.
Spiritfarer, I really liked.
Hmm.
I just don't think it holds a candle to Hades.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Hades wins it.
It's
still
it's shocking that a game this good came out of such a small team.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's just how good Supergiant is at focusing on the right things for what a game needs. A good narrative, good art direction, good music, and enjoyable gameplay.
Right.
Yeah.
And
And they do it
concentrated
well
here on everything
every
that they
time.
are. Yeah, they concentrated on what they are best at for
Right.
this game, and it worked.
I do think it's important to just recognize that this game was also out a year before. So they've been working on it early access, and the
Yeah,
official date.
But a
is
year
now.
ago, it didn't. It was literally half a game.
Yeah, but you know,
So I
the
don't
the
feel
other
bad about it.
nominees didn't have, you know, the same opportunity to be half a game and then grow into something amazing. I think that's important to mention. It still wins, you know, but I think
That's
it's still
true.
like saying like, hey, your game came out and it was great. And it's just like, well, no, your game came out and then you worked on it and then you worked on it and then you worked on it.
And then it officially came out, and then it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. I kind of get that. There is no early access category for the Game Awards. That might be something that would be fun to
Yeah.
add, actually. So best ongoing, always a tough category. We've got Apex Legends, Destiny 2, Call of Duty Warzone, Fortnite, and No Man's Sky.
Destiny 2, hands down, winner.
Fortnite
Oof.
probably is
Oof.
gonna win.
I don't even know anymore because
I think
the
Fortnite will win.
choice
It's
here.
just Destiny gets my vote because I think it's better.
Because you play it.
It's your
I played
personal
Fortnite and I
crack.
hated every second of it.
I
I
played Fortnite. I didn't love it,
But-
but then
but
it's not
You didn't hate
my
it
kinda
because of its
game.
ongoingness. You hated it because of other things.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about an ongoing game, I think it really has to be about like the content pipeline and the frequency
Yeah.
and all that kind of, that sort of stuff.
But again,
Right.
Fortnite is just so big. It just feels out of place in here.
I agree, and I think
Yeah.
that like this is where I have to get weirdly pedantic and be like, I only give a shit about the part of Fortnite that is actually a game. And I
Mhm.
don't
Right.
play enough of Fortnite as a
Yeah.
game to even
Sure.
have an intelligent argument here. I just mean that like things like Fortnite throws concerts, like who gives a shit? I think that No Man's Sky again, like
Yeah.
it stands
Yeah.
out here for being the like single player focused game, which I think is
Actually, I think the reason No Man's Sky should win is because it's free content. All the rest of them, their content
Fortnite is-
no,
pipeline.
they gotta get paid. They gotta get paid.
No, they
Actually-
do, but in the sense of like
But I'm
really,
just saying
what,
that shouldn't be
really
a
what's
criteria.
ongoing in these games
Well,
is
and
the
they do
store
stuff
content
like
that comes out.
And
Right?
also, like,
they do a
it's
whole
not
lot of
free, they
content
have premium
tie-ins
currency.
where they're getting
Right.
paid by content
It's
creators.
it's store
to
content that
advertise.
comes out, and who has the newest avatar that has
Yeah.
the coolest skin or the
Yeah.
coolest,
Well, let's
Like-
not, hold on. Fortnite has a lot of gameplay events. We cannot
Yeah.
sell it short on that
I
front.
kind of want to even.
I'm saying I
shift
said
it.
No Man's Sky versus
okay,
the rest
okay.
of them.
Yeah.
Because
I
the
kinda-
rest of them have that. They have this store model that a lot of their content pipeline comes from store stuff.
No. No Man's Sky, you can spend real world money to get in-game money to buy like starships and shit.
stuff. Yeah.
Does it?
Yes.
I've not seen that in the game. So
It's been
But-
out for a little bit.
I think we can make this conversation like a little bit more interesting with Fortnite if we change Fortnite from a game to a platform, because when something is in Fortnite, it makes something more popular. Fortnite has access to all the biggest IPs, Star Wars, Marvel. They fought Galactus, for God's sakes, and they're talking about having icons from. What is it like? I think what did they say? The rumor is Kratos, Samus, and
Kratos is real.
Yeah, and they're supposed to be in the game. It's like, okay, and that just gives more visibility to something else. So I don't think of Fortnite as a game. I think of it as a platform. It's sort of like, it's so funny we're talking about it in this way because I was thinking earlier and people were like, oh, that world of Ready Player One. Guys, all we need is the technology, and Fortnite is Ready Player One.
I agree in the sense that I think
It
you're
literally is
advocating
pretty
for
clear.
I don't
the
think
best
so.
Oasis offshoot category. But
Yeah.
going off of the
Yeah.
subtext
It
here,
doesn't.
they say game.
I wouldn't say that's a one-to-one, kind of thing. I think you'd have to say because the Oasis is a platform in itself. If we're going to make that comparison, none of these have that kind of widespread ability. They're all kind of focused on
Right, and that's what I don't want to happen. I don't want Fortnite to win because they have the money and the technology to make it a platform, and that's significant because that does
Yeah.
not factor into the game part of it to me at all.
Yeah. But this is why I just feel it doesn't belong here anymore. It's a platform.
Well, it's both though. Like I said, it's not like you said the Galactus thing, right? Like that's a
Yeah.
real ongoing game event. That's significant. If No Man's Sky had that shit, I would fucking boot that thing up in 2 seconds.
Mm.
Yeah, it's just not that kind of game.
Yeah.
All right, games for impact. Ooh, I have some thoughts on this one, but if found, ... Kentucky Route Zero, Spiritfarer, Tell Me Why, and Through the Darkest of Times, which is the only
Played
one
none
of
of
these I have
these.
not played at all.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
the only one I
oddly
played
enough.
is Spiritfarer,
Oh wow.
and I
Yeah.
very much enjoyed it for what it is. That's pretty much
Yeah.
all I got.
So, if found, almost is or is not a game, depending on your point of view about it. But it's about a young adult who has decided to transition genders, and is doing so from a small island off the coast of the UK, where people just don't seem to get it. and basically their story of the experience of trying to move back and be understood by the community is a really great heartfelt story with a single author / artist who's done some great work. But it's a relatively small entry into the gaming world by somebody that I hope will keep at it and do even more interesting things, hopefully. Kentucky Route Zero is a game that's been in development for 7 or 8 years. Again, a small team, but it has more of the mission of using magical realism and the sort of mechanics you'd see for problem solving or exploration games to help people understand the challenges and the atmosphere of living in a place like Kentucky, in a small town world that feels forgotten and which is in danger of being lost forever. So Kentucky Route Zero is literally talking about a highway to nowhere and what it's like to try and make a last delivery on it. It's a beautiful game, and I definitely would give it the win for this one because it's so clever and the mechanics are constantly evolving in the same way that the Spider-Man game feels like there's no time wasted. Kentucky Route Zero can be played in as little as 6 hours, and if you have never grown up in a place like this, you will learn stuff.
And it has a great cry per minute ratio.
Yes, it
I'm
does.
out.
Very good.
And
Doesn't
some
want his feels from
fantastic,
his video
some
games.
fantastic music. The art is very clever at how it portrays people. By actually not giving them faces, it actually allows people to be more expressive. It is a lot of reading, so if that's an issue for you, that might be your one trouble with this game. I really wish it was voiced. That would have made it that much better. But for a small indie game under production for years, they've accomplished something that I would have almost thought couldn't be done. So I want to give them credit for that. Anyway,
I played none of these. Yo, super guilty. Like, didn't do my job.
I feel like I should have played Tell
Yeah.
Me Why for some reason. I feel like I don't know if someone
Because
told me to
Don't
play
Nod.
it.
It's
or-
Don't Nod. It's the people who did
mhm.
Life is Strange. That's probably why you feel like.
And
That's probably why. You're right.
yeah,
You got that
Yeah.
one right on the nose.
Yep. and I don't want to knock it in any way. I just don't think it's quite the accomplishment in the same
So the
way.
next one, the next category, I'm just completely biased on.
Dun,
Whew.
dun,
I will
dun.
get into why.
All
Let's
right,
fight.
so
Let's go.
let's talk about it really quick first,
Reading
and I
the
also
fighting
want to talk
categories.
about the history of this and what it means to me. So, best performance awarded to an individual for voice overacting, motion, and/or performance
You said,
capture.
oh, I see. It's voice overacting. I heard voice, comma,
Overacting.
overacting.
No, voiceover acting. And I do want to point out that in some video games, the person doing the voice work and the person doing the motion capture can be two different people, and that's totally normal.
Mhm.
But in the case of these, as far as I know, we don't really have that issue. Either you have a purely animated character
Yeah, they
or
wouldn't have nominated them
or
if-
the voice and motion are done by the same person. So we've got Ashley Johnson as Ellie and Laura Bailey as Abby, both of those from Last of Us Part 2. And that's almost problematic in and of itself. Whenever you've got two actors from the same game, you're going to tend to split the vote. So
it's not problematic. They both deserve it.
it's a problem.
do.
Well, then that's
They
another
do.
problem. So we've got, I don't know how to say this guy's name. So
Daisuke Tsuji.
thank you. As Jin Sakai in Ghost of Tsushima. We've got Logan Cunningham as Hades. And he also does the narrator, and he's done a lot of stuff for Supergiant Games. But anyway,
He's done the
Najee
narrator
Jeter
in all of their games.
and all
Yeah.
of their games. And Najee Jeter is Miles Morales in the Super Spider-Man game.
I chose Laura Bailey because it was either Ashley Johnson or Laura Bailey because I'm a Critical Role stan, okay?
Interesting. Okay.
I love them both.
Man, Steve's reasons are so deeply personal. I
Their
love it.
their
Yeah.
acting is fantastic, and I would give it to Laura Bailey if I have to choose between them as well.
That's who I ended
Breakout
up choosing.
performance by and this character that is so different from what you're kind of used to seeing in these kind of games. That felt great to me.
But I will
I agree,
say
except it's not a
that-
breakout. Laura's been doing amazing shit.
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
years.
That's
Laura's been
true.
fantastic for years.
That's true.
That's
That's
partially why I chose her. But I also have to give credit to Najee Jeter in Miles Morales because
His
he does a
voiceover work.
very, very good job of delivering the lines of someone who is very unsure of themselves in a
Yeah.
And so
position
earnest
of
and heartfelt.
yes.
And
It's so like you can hear like in his voice when it breaks in those moments.
Yeah.
How he's just unsure of himself. He's not sure if he can get this stuff done and all the deeply personal connections that he has.
It brings me back to animated series Peter Parker, like
Yeah.
that level of voiceover quality where like you hear
Right.
that and like I'm playing through it a second time and there are still some moments where like I'm catching the inflections in his
Right.
performance and I'm just like, yes.
yeah.
The way he sells that unsure teenager thing is just spot on.
And I kind of want to give it to the, again, hard to say the name for, I'll try, Daisuke Tsuji as Jin Sakai, because in this case, I think it's going to be overlooked, but it's such a beautifully subtle performance.
Is
They're trying to portray somebody who is dealing with internal conflict between the morals they were raised with and what they truly believe deep in their heart is true. And the stakes could not be higher. Here's somebody who can either be basically turned into the equivalent of an emperor for the small island he grew up on, or can be hunted for the rest of his life as a
yeah,
result of his actions.
and like I'm gonna just throw it out like there's no context, so it's not technically a spoiler, but when that man says I may have no honor, but I won't kill you. Like I was just like, oh, all the heart, oh, it's so good.
It
I will
deals,
say
it
to
deals
his
with
credit,
issues of family and love and what does that mean in a
the
way that
way
is
he
beautiful.
delivers Jin's lines when Jin is very sure of something in his belief,
Mm,
it does like that confidence does come through in the voice acting.
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, and the empathy that he feels, and it's so important to contrast that when you basically have the Mongols on the other side of this war.
Right.
Is again, it's so subtle, but it's so clear at the same time,
But
and it's
again,
very in keeping with the cultural difference. It's part of how a Western studio managed to get away with actually creating a game that's respectful. Is
right.
that acting?
Mikey,
job.
who do you stand?
I don't know actually. I think wow, like Miles is good.
Good, yeah.
Najee is good. Uh
Laura Bailey is Bae.
Logan Cunningham was really good as well. I mean,
He's just been doing
his-
awesome shit for
his
years.
range is very good.
It's ridiculous.
So
I want to give it to Logan Cunningham, but not for this game. This is not his game. For me.
Right.
Yeah,
I
for
think
me,
there's gonna
That's
be one of
why-
those, but this isn't it.
for me that's Transistor, and unfortunately that ship has sailed.
He'll
Yeah.
come again. He'll come around again.
yeah,
I believe it.
I might do
Too good not to.
Najee Jeter. I might do Najee Jeter.
All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Red.
Okay. Respect for all
Are we
the
gonna get away with
respect for all
this?
those choices. These are all good.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of good choices this year, which is great. Okay, so best audio design. This is interesting because I wanted to say in-game audio and sound design. This has nothing to do with music, which is a different category. So we've got
Yeah.
Doom Eternal, Half-Life Alyx, Ghost
Although
of
music
Tsushima,
is part of sound design.
Resident Evil 3, and The Last of Us Part 2. In some ways, but we don't want to evaluate whether the composer
Yeah.
is
Best
a good
soundtrack
composer,
doesn't immediately win.
Right.
for
right?
sure.
Yeah, we want to
I
differentiate.
think it's a matter of getting the sound that of action that happens in the game or things that happen to really define your atmosphere.
So
Yeah.
to
In a
me
game.
also, it's
Atmosphere
also
is the key
because
word.
these are games, it's also about intelligibility.
Mm-hmm.
Can I understand just by listening what is going on around me?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very much important of like hearing like something like a gunshot should really give you context as to what's going on too.
Right. Where is
Right.
it coming from? How far away is it? What kind of gun is it? These are all things that I might need to know in order to
Right.
play the
And
game
then
well.
timing for dramatic effect.
I actually think this is the hardest category for me personally that we
I agree with you 100% because when I look at this list of games here and I think of the sound design, I think of games that are very atmospherically on point.
and
you
they
know?
convey information very well.
Very
So,
well.
And Ghost is interesting to me too because they took a sound crew and they sent it out to the exact island where this is taking place, and they took nature sounds. And not only did they take those nature sounds and transport them into the game, they made them meaningful. Like if you hear the sound of the deer, it sounds like the sort of wailful crying sound. And it's appropriate to the game's atmosphere. And it's
Yeah.
appropriate that they then decided that this is the one animal, if you kill them, you get nothing. Because actually the
Yeah.
people of the island view them as being
Yeah.
maybe not sacred per se, but you don't just go around killing them. That makes
And it-
them
Also, it
barbaric.
uses the speaker, the controller speaker
Mm,
in a very good way. It's one of those games that you
it
remember
gives you the win,
literally
right?
all I hear. Like I remember, like, I'm like, oh
Yes.
yeah, I forgot that
Ah.
happens. That
Yes,
happens.
yes, yes,
There's
yes.
some other things as well,
Yeah.
but I think it's always very special when that controller speaker is being used.
I think
And-
I'm
Which
on
is
the
being
same
used a lot in
page
PS5.
because, yeah, in general, Ghost of Tsushima has very, very excellent sound design
Sound
throughout it.
cues and a lot of sound
And
cues.
but like, I'm gonna be slightly just emotionally rational for the moment, which is I still don't understand like when like every time in the intro that you start galloping towards the field and the music starts doing its thing, and like it just, my heart genuinely every time just goes like, oh man, this is gonna be crazy, man, this is gonna be intense. Like it's so good, it's scary.
It's almost not about at that moment what the music sounds like. It's just the fact
Mm.
that it opens you up to the open world environment at the same time that music swells and you feel your vibrator, your controller vibrating as the sound of your horse behind you and the birds around you, all that is happening. And yeah,
Yeah, and
that's
they
a great moment.
continue using audio like that well.
Yeah. Yeah. So to me, I'm giving it to that game because it's so integral to the game design and in a way that, again, feeds into the narrative themes, but also is useful from a gameplay perspective. The wind is telling you which direction to go, both because the narrative would have it be that way. It is literally the soul of your mother guiding you. But also because from a gameplay perspective, now I'm never lost. I always know which direction to go. That's cool.
Word.
So, any other thoughts or contrary opinions?
Mm,
The guns sound really nice in Doom.
They are great. There's some fantastic squishing sounds. Don't get me wrong.
When you rip out a demon's heart, mwah.
yeah.
Also true. And on a more ordinary year, I might give it to them.
I guess I'll just very quickly say Last of Us Part 2, also excellent sound design. Everything that we said about Ghost of Tsushima pretty much applies.
Yeah. In just more of a traditional shooter way, it feels like to me.
Hmm. Like you never get lost in that game because the audio is smart.
And I do love the fact that every NPC was given a name and they yell out to each other, "Oh my God, Don's dead!" You know,
You killed Carl.
right? It makes you feel those deaths in a way that is more real. But I don't know
Yeah.
if I'd call that audio design as much as narrative design. I don't know, some
True.
combination. All right, so best score in music. This is the other side of that. Doom Eternal, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Hades, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, and The Last of Us Part 2.
All right, I think we're all on the same page here.
I think it's a safe bet.
1, 2, 3, Hades.
Hades.
80s.
Yeah, the music's just so damn good.
I'm not gonna lie, I was very much compelled to like throw you a curveball there that said something else.
Ori.
Just to be contrarian.
That
yeah.
just for that of like
Sure.
ruining that moment.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest
know
with
you,
you,
Steve.
I like
Get it.
Hades, but I probably would do FF7 remake.
That's fair. Totally fair.
Yeah, I
And the
mean,
music is great. It just
it's fantastic.
it's Final Fantasy VII again. So
And in
Yeah, but
particular,
reorchestrated and everything.
That's
but,
true.
but
And
also
it is good.
holistically done. Like even just from
Yeah.
the jump in that game, they know what you're expecting if you played the original, and they fuck with you audially immediately. Like you're just like, this isn't the intro that I remember, and like
yeah,
it's all the remixes. Is
yeah,
solid shit.
it's really good. So I might actually have to stick with FF7, but it was
It's-
close.
It's weird. I think the toss-up should be between those two because Darren
Yeah.
Korb is a fantastic composer, but so is Nobuo
like-
Uematsu.
And
Right.
part of it is on some level, like I want to award Darren Korb because he's also the voice of Zagreus. He's also apparently the best player, the best gamer they have on staff. He had to build his own recording studio in his home in order to complete this game
'Cause
because of
Corona.
coronavirus.
Right.
You know, so just knowing what all he's done for the company on some level,
It's pretty wild. Yeah.
But-
you know,
It's best score in music, so we have to look at that.
We have to
That's
be
true.
objective,
Strictly
damn
that.
it, because Steve has been
Yeah.
objective this entire time. He
I hate
hasn't-
everything.
You hate it all. So this is a good time to get your hair hat on.
Oh,
Best
man.
art direction: Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, Ori and Will of the Wisps, and Last of Us Part 2. We're seeing these same games over and over again.
So I have
Surprise.
I have a toss up between two here, and for me it's between Ori and Hades.
Mm.
I very much like the art direction in these two games because it's not your usual kind of like realistic approach
Mhm.
to art direction.
Yeah, and I don't
Um,
want to. I don't want it to be well. I need it to be arty as opposed to realistic. That's
If
not.
I wanted to see the best looking outside world, I'd walk outside, right?
And I want to be open to having like a horror genre or a gritty shooter being
Yeah,
the
for
winner to
sure.
this. But this particular year, yeah, it kind of feels like it goes to the artists because
I very much believe that this kind
Classical.
of this category specifically is something that you give to like a really artistic approach to the way a game looks. And
Yeah.
Hades and Ori do that very well. Whereas the other two are kind of approaching it from like, this is what the world looks like,
hmm
yeah,
right?
Yeah, I think art
Not from an
direction-
artist perspective, but this
Right.
is what it looks like, trying to recreate
Yeah,
what it would really look like.
And when I hear the word direction, I start thinking about directed towards what, right? And
Right.
both of these
Right.
games, Ori and Hades, actually everything here, but those two especially, I think are serving the purpose of what their game is trying to accomplish
right.
really, really well.
Yeah.
I think Last of Us is as well. It's just that it happens to be directing its art towards making you feel like shit most of the time, and that's okay. That's valid. I think, for example, that like they really nailed dismemberment that makes me feel weird. Like they fucking nailed that. But
Yeah.
I would go with Hades because
Right.
it's incredibly novel what they're doing with whatever engine they're working with. I think it's Unity. I don't know, but they have this whole 3D pipeline that they've developed and had to go with struggles throughout this development process to achieve what a lot of people probably write off as a 2D game.
Yeah.
And it's really impressive because it requires so much consideration around making sure that the information is communicated correctly. And I think it's alarming how well they've done that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I want to give like a brief moment for Ghost of Tsushima to talk about the fact that they went into a bunch of museums and actually scanned in actual artifacts and turned them into game things that you could pick up and read about. That they used the masks in a very clever way throughout the game, stuff like that. But as much as I appreciate that, what they did with Hades is just impressive, man.
Yeah.
It's just really impressive, and it's consistent, and it feels like the game was built with what the artists can do in mind.
And that's one of those things where I think it's like Supergiant has been defining their art direction over the past 4 games too. Because they don't try and stray into stuff that they don't want to do or trying to come off as a different aesthetic. They know the aesthetic they want, and they're continuing to make it better over those 4 games.
And we've seen them do straight fantasy. We've seen them do an Art Deco style futurism, and here we've kind of melded all that with this Greek aesthetic, and made it cool somehow. Can't possibly be easy.
It is very cool. From like when you walk the halls of the House of Hades, just like it's a very inspired design.
And I found myself genuinely motivated to buy tchotchkes for the House of Hades
Yeah,
to make it look cooler
to make it look
inside,
cooler. Yeah.
which is nuts. I don't usually go into that to quite that extent.
I've
but
spent
given
a
conversation
good
was-
amount of time there, like looking between the different things that you could, decorations you could put throughout the house. Be like, what looks the best here and what fits thematically and makes this place look just really cool.
Right, and it makes you feel a little bit like you're designing the game too, which
Yep.
is nice. Yeah.
Mm.
So
I will quickly mention that I think that I want to troll the entire internet and just say that Tifa's boobs are still too big, and I hope that they get smaller in the next one.
they could have done a
Okay.
little bit more.
Bad art direction. Bad
in
art
terms
direction.
of modernizing the original design of the game. I mean, when the original game came out, characters had cone booms because you had a limited number of.
I'm half trolling,
metric
but I'm
shapes
also
you could use.
like in terms of art direction, that literally took me out of the game several times. And I'm just like, Tifa's boobs are annoying. Anyway,
Yeah, her
Okay.
whole costume was a little off for me, but other than that, anyway. So best narrative. Let's move on. 13 Sentinels, Aegis Rim, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, and Last of Us Part 2. So most of these we've seen many times. 13 Sentinels is the outlier. I'm wondering if any of you guys have played that. I have not.
I hadn't
I've
even
heard about it and I've listened to some reviews about it. It seems interesting. It's a Vanillaware game, I believe, and like a sim strategy game mixed with like a dating simulator or something. So you
Oh.
These are
go
all things I
around
like.
it with the nice vanilla art, and it's like 13 people that go through time. It's like a time bending drama. So
I'm
Huh.
about to pull a Steve and buy this game right now.
Yeah,
it's
I'm
supposed to be
curious.
interesting. I think a lot of the complaints that were around maybe the strategy system, like it's just like, just give us the narrative and we can move past this stuff. But it's a game. I guess it has a really good narrative. I think my take would probably be Ghosts, and I say that because although Hades is probably better, you have to do a lot of work to get through Hades' narrative. And if you're not interested in it, then it's very much tied to gameplay and skill and luck, getting nectars and beating Hades and getting more story and knowing who to talk to. And I think that kind of limits it from being a winner in this one,
Yeah. So I feel weird that the Final Fantasy VII Remake is even on here because the original game was fantastic. This is very much like the original game, only less of it because it's not the whole.
I super agree. I think this
There
does
needs
not
to be a
belong here.
remake category because it's become such a thing in the
Well, it
industry.
doesn't
It's gonna keep
feel-
Maybe I don't know if there's enough like remakes per year to make that a stable thing, but
maybe
Not
but
yet.
like
not yet.
yeah.
Give it time.
I mean,
but
for
in
me,
terms of
it
Go
doesn't
ahead.
fit just because it's not a complete narrative.
that's part
Yeah.
of it for me, and
Right.
I
Aren't they trying to
also
change it up a little bit?
yes they
They
are.
Yeah, they
are.
did.
So
And they kind
so
of get into that towards like the end of the game where it's like that's where it's really like pushing that down.
and I think it's
Yeah.
easily the grossest, clunkiest part of the narrative that might happen to work for me because I played the original, but that's not a good, tight narrative. That
Right.
ending, in my opinion, and I have played the original, to someone who has not played the original, is confusing trash at the end, just trying to put myself in their shoes. I don't think this,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Even
genuinely
as
don't think
someone
it ever belongs here.
who's played the original, it doesn't feel like a complete it doesn't
isn't.
feel like an ending.
It's
Right.
not.
Right.
And even if
Right.
you know what's going on or you don't know what's going on, it just leaves you kind of like I'm
Yeah.
not satisfied.
And
Yeah.
and to play slightly devil's advocate with myself, there's some good writing in FF7 Remake. I like what they did with Sector 7, but
Hmm.
Me
I
too.
just don't think it's in this class with everything else.
Yeah.
I think
But-
for me at the end of the day, my choice is The Last of Us Part 2
Mm.
because I didn't finish Ghost of Tsushima, so I can't give it that credit because it didn't stick for me. I still
Yeah.
haven't finished Hades. I'm very much tied to the narrative, but for me,
Yeah.
The Last of Us gave me some emotional highs and lows that I just really enjoyed and have stuck with me the most.
Yeah, The Last of Us is an enigma for me because some combination of direction or narrative are fantastic, but if I piece the two, they're almost at war with each other. And
That's
that's
not
part
by
of the
accident.
that's part of the point.
Yeah.
So which of those do I award it to?
Yeah.
You
It's hard
know?
to say.
And with Hades just being so consistently good for 100+ hours of gameplay, it becomes hard to fight. And
Yeah,
And
Ghost of Tsushima, in some ways, I felt took what Hades was trying to do, and actually, I mean, Last of Us was trying to do, and did it a little better.
And I think that just the one more thing that gives it to Last of Us for me is that they took someone that you hated at the very beginning of the game and made you feel for them to the point where now you're stuck in the middle and you don't know how to feel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And I think that's a very interesting way to play with narrative
sure. And
instead of just being like, this guy ruined your life and now you hate him.
Yeah.
I still get caught up with what feels to be like the original sin, which is feeling like you've given the illusion of choice to the player. but ultimately you're telling the character's story, and that
Yeah.
choice is an illusion.
It's
And that happens several times in The Last of Us Part 2, but especially at the end, it feels real weird.
Yeah, I don't think it's as egregious as like Bioshock Infinite, for example, that tries to really like get in your face and be like, shame on you. And it's just like, I had no choice here. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Last of Us, I think, is more nuanced and it's better than that. But I do agree with you that there's plenty of awkwardness and there's a lot of the game being like, isn't this bad? And I was like, yeah, I was on board that it was bad from like 3 minutes into the game. But I think we're in the minority. Like a lot of the talk on the internet is people like going like that, you know, their genuine first impression of the character that you're supposed to hate is, yeah, they fucking hated her.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, so I don't know which way the category whole is going to go for everyone. I'm probably going to give it to Hades.
It's a weird like
Because-
overarching
This
like
is a hard one.
thing, right?
hard.
That kind of has
Yeah.
like kind of a social commentary to it of like how people just hate and continue to hate without being able to change their minds,
And it doesn't
regardless of
and it
if you
doesn't
give
just
them
like teach
information.
you. It like makes you kind of feel that. So
right.
that's good.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's an interesting like social connection you could make to like the world now, and then how like people hate the character and won't change their opinion.
Mhm.
Well, yeah. So, best game direction and
That's
Last of Us
why
Part 2 is
Last
in it.
of Us gets
and
that
that's-
for me.
And that's what, yeah, that's what one I think I'm going to give to The Last of Us Part 2. We've also got Half-Life Alyx, Hades, Ghost of Tsushima, and Final Fantasy VII Remake. So,
Yeah, most of the
Um,
reasons that we were just talking about for Last of Us Part 2 make it the clear winner in this particular category for me.
Yeah.
Because when you
Yeah.
talk about narrative, it's perfectly fair to like knock it points for having sloppy narrative structure. That makes sense. But in
Right.
terms of directing everything in the game towards like your intended goals,
Yeah.
no one did what Last of Us Part
Man,
2
is
did.
anyone else getting tired of seeing the same games in every single category?
yes.
Get
And,
there.
and again, I want to remind everyone there are a bunch of games that didn't come out for the Game Awards that were supposed to this year. So next year's going to
Yeah,
be
I'm
weird.
like, you scrolled up again, and I'm like, I'm so tired of seeing these damn thumbnails again and again.
Yes.
Again.
I
Like,
hear you,
just
I
give me
hear
a
you.
different picture of Zacharias.
How many times do I have to look into Zagreus's eyes, watch Jin hold this thing, watch
His
this guy from
mask.
Half-Life Alyx
Mask.
like pointing a gun at me, and Cloud and company looking off into the distance?
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. Okay, so we're just gonna do it. Any other thoughts on best game direction? Because then I think we only have one more after this. In our,
They
No.
all
Yeah.
did a good
That's
job,
right.
I guess.
Okay.
They all did a
So-
good job.
Here's the thing. Game of the year. You're gonna see it all again.
Except
God.
Although
So
we
excited.
put,
Challenger
we
has
put
arrived.
Doom Eternal and Animal Crossing into the
Mhm.
list. Otherwise,
Yep.
again, Final Fantasy.
I'm
was-
still tired of seeing the Doom Eternal thing.
And,
the only
Animal
one that's
Crossing Game of the Year.
Yeah, exactly. The only one that's refreshing here to see is Animal Crossing, so that one's Game of the Year. I'm tired of seeing the rest of these thumbnails. This is how the Game Awards have ruined it for me.
yeah.
Mm.
Keep in mind,
And-
if you voted, you would do this in reverse order, but okay.
Sure. So again, in other Game Awards, Last of Us has done very well. I think this is the first big Game Awards that Hades has been eligible for, despite the fact that it's been out through early access for a
Well,
long time.
1.0 was this year. It was
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that
Yeah,
I don't know, like I think that's kind of like a weird distinction. You have to like decide of like how does early access fit into the game cycle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I
It's-
feel like they should perhaps have a category just for that.
Strategic release.
I would agree with that because it's like you have this more wide range feedback for
You
your
can
game.
have
on how to
something
fix it.
like most promising game, and you can put early access stuff in
Right.
there. I think on
So-
some level, it's really up to the actual game build developers. Like they
Yeah.
called it a 1.0.
So I'm gonna say my vote's going to Hades, but The Last of Us is probably gonna win. Anybody have contrary thoughts?
I think mine is just the reverse of yours.
Oh,
Mm.
interesting. Okay.
For me, I give it to Ghost of Tsushima. I have no idea who's gonna win.
Yeah, I think this one is very
Yeah.
much a toss up because it could go
And that's the thing is, I think
because
Ghost and The Last
each
of
of these
Us
games.
are pulling votes away from each other a little bit.
Right. And I
Yeah.
think
I see
that,
that.
each of these games were like have a very specific audience for each of them
Mm.
Yeah.
in a way
Yeah.
that like the
I
Doom
think-
Eternal crossover is not big with the Last of Us crossover.
And again, the way that they weigh them is, I don't know the exact weights, but there's a press dimension and there's a public dimension. And I think like Animal Crossing might like rake up the public dimension votes, so to speak.
Right.
But I don't think the press are gonna give that to that.
Yeah.
I see the press giving this to The Last of Us or Doom, or Final Fantasy. Like one of those
The
three.
press like goes a lot, I think.
Again, but it's like for me, like press is one of those things where it's like it's very much a popular opinion, and I have so much trouble like giving any credit to a lot of game developers these days because of the way they review their games.
I think you mean game media.
Reviewers.
I'm sorry, game media,
Okay.
yeah, game
Right.
reviewers, because it's pretty much like the scale isn't 1 to 10 anymore. The scale is 7, 8, 9.
I do want to point out there is a separate player's voice where only players vote,
Yeah.
and they start with a large number of potential candidates. And
Oh
they have
yeah, today's
round
round
through
3.
rounds. So round 3 is today, and they've narrowed it down to Doom Eternal, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, Spider-Man. Interesting that that's on the list, and The Last of Us Part 2. I like that Spider-Man's
Steve
on
is
the list.
obviously giving it to
Frankly,
Spider-Man because he
I'm
hasn't
not
seen enough
surprised that
Spider-Man.
Animal Crossing is not on it. Doesn't surprise me at all, frankly.
Yeah.
I I would consider giving it to Spider-Man, but again, it
Yeah,
came
I
out
kinda
so
want to.
recently,
I kind of want to
and
because
only finishing it yesterday, I'm still like compiling how I feel about everything to the
Yeah.
point where like I can't give you an honest answer if I
But
think that it was better.
on
'Cause
some level, I am so sick of the superhero genre being a bunch of white dudes that this is such a good entry into not that I want to reward it somehow. And this might be the way I'll do it.
For me, it's just about the punchy storytelling. Like
It's so good.
It's so important that like you can beat that game in 2 to 3 sittings and get an amazingly cogent, concise story out of it.
Yeah.
And
But
that's
I
another
still gotta
thing.
give it
This
a
is the
Ghost.
this is the only game on the list that I can't imagine anyone I wouldn't recommend the game to. No
Mm,
matter how little time they have to play or how few video games they have played before, I
Valid.
bet you they can get through that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Word.
So I think at the end of the day, for me, it's just The Last of Us edges out just a little bit ahead of everything else.
Mm.
Yep.
James,
And I'm not
what do
going to
you vote
lie,
for?
it was a very tough decision to make.
That is
Where-
very hard because I've played none of these games.
Where so
know.
where are you landing in your mind hearing us talk about all this stuff? How's
any
it
games that you're
feeling?
like, ooh, I need to play that.
I don't know because like I haven't played the Doom Eternal. I played 16 of. I've played parts of the original Final Fantasy 7.
Mhm.
Never like I got stuck on beginning of Disc 3 somewhere originally. I've had you guys and a friend here talk about Ghost of Tsushima a little bit.
Mhm.
I got to see Hades last night.
Yeah.
I know absolutely nothing about The Last of Us, and
Fair.
I've seen people play Animal Crossing.
So I think one
So
of the interesting
you are probably
things,
where most gamers in this country are right now.
I think
And
one
I
of
think that's
the-
important for us to note, and that's part of why I'm glad you're here.
I think one of the interesting
Honestly.
things that comes out of this podcast for me is the getting introduced to games that I would normally pass by
Yeah.
and just say I'm not going to play that, because when someone's able to give you kind of a brief but like also intelligent description of a game on why it's good, it helps you be more open to trying that game. And I will say a lot of the games that I've played in the recent years have come from people on this podcast saying you should play this because it's good for this reasons that I
Mm.
normally would have never played.
Yep.
You know,
And that's what awards can be for a lot of people. It serves as a shorthand. So,
right.
I think I'm happy to say that like for most of these categories, like whoever wins, I'm just like, yeah, that deserves it. That's
That's
cool.
fine. I'm good with it.
And this is going to be for certain games, it probably will lead to
And-
more sales because they get to slap it on the back of the box.
As long as we don't have a Final Fantasy VII sweep, I think I'm going to be pretty happy.
Yeah, that's true. That would
I
be,
really hope that doesn't happen because
Yeah.
it doesn't deserve a sweep.
yeah.
No.
that-
An award or two, I won't cry. It's fine.
I'm trying to think of
Yeah.
like the Oscars equivalent of like if FF7 remake, like
What's
not only, like,
video game award bait? Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
I-
like
and
is
I-
that like
I do think
Titanic? Like
it's like-
Titanic?
If Hades and or The Last of Us wins nothing, that will also make me genuinely sad because they
I don't
deserve
know.
some kind of do.
Is that mathematically
And
possible?
Ghost of Tsushima as well. I mean, I just want to give some credit where it's due. And I honestly think if the Spider-Man game had come out a little earlier, it would be doing better on this
Yeah.
awards list.
Yeah.
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 So
I
I wanna
would
say
like
good
to
things.
think that if we can come out with kind of like an even kind of awards this year, where like nothing really
Yeah.
sweeps,
That would be.
I'd be
cool.
happy with that because a
hope
lot
the
of these
press
games do
corps-
deserve the credit of how good they actually are.
Yeah, I hope
And
the
I
press
don't
corps
think-
is trying to think about that.
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
don't feel like any one of these games should sweep, but I also feel like they should all sweep. So in the sense of that, because none of them stood out so much further than the next, that like, I want that to kind of be reflected in the awards.
Yeah, word.
And I also want it to be reflected that this was a good year. Whatever
It
kind of game you like, there is something for you.
Yeah, this was a good, with all the delays and COVID happening, it still was a very good year for gaming, and we got a lot of good quality out of it.
Golf clap for the public service that gaming has performed for everyone's mental health.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well done, gaming community.
You did it.
Enjoy your Game Awards show, however strange it may turn out to be.
Where? What is this? Streaming online, right? Is this?
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, they actually encourage anybody who wants to restream to just do it.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm
that's
pretty
really
sure
cool.
they encourage that. Yeah.
So you will see it on every possible.
Well, I hope they don't
platform
use
on-
any copyrighted music, because then nobody on Twitch
And
will.
then, yeah,
We'll be able to. Exactly.
It's gonna be like live
Fair.
performance by the Foo Fighters, and then it's gonna be like, why did the Twitch audio cut out? What's going on?
Yeah. Well, okay. So I guess if anybody wants to know, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook Live, TikTok Live, GameSpot, IGN, Steam, Troyo, and LiveXLive.com.
Well, it seems like
TikTok
they've got-
Live, my goodness, where?
Whatever half of those things are.
Impressive.
Uploaded
that's-
in 10-second clips. What's the TikTok limit?
Yeah.
That's what
So,
the young
I hope
are
this
using.
will be a high viewership year, and that a record number of actual award winners will accept the
there's-
awards.
There's a
That-
record
That's what I'm
number
hoping
of
for.
people staying the fuck home on a Thursday night.
That's true.
Where would they go?
That's my joke.
Yeah.
Because they
Okay.
better be home. Otherwise, the feds are coming for you.
No, it's not
The
quite that.
fans.
But I will say this: this is also where we ought to go. It appears. So we've reached the rest of our categories. We've kind of gone through what the year's looking like. I'm really looking forward to the show when it comes out, and we may have a brief talk about the results.
Maybe we'll do a
when they
debrief
come.
next
A
week.
little-
Yeah.
a short one. But it's been real fun talking about this with you guys.
Place your bets now.
Right.
Alrighty.
We should do that next year. We should do Game Awards boxes.
Oh, that would be hilarious. I'm committing to that right now.
Are you?
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.